So we are celebrating the life and music of Eddie Van Halen and the birthday of Joe Meyer.
Great.
Happy
Two
birthday, little
equal
buddy.
milestones.
Absolutely. So Van Halen, one of my all-time favorite bands. When did you guys first hear Van Halen?
You want me to go first?
Good, do it.
All right.
Jimmy.
You're the guitar player.
So Van Halen one came out, I was 10. So I seriously learned about them, or would have been Women and Children first. And it was from my buddy Sean McGarry's older brother, who also was the guy that had like All the World's a Stage. And like, you know, we had Kiss. When I was 8, that was Kiss, and there wasn't another band. You know, I knew there were other bands, but they didn't, like, I didn't care about Seals and Crofts or Carly Simon.
They didn't spit fire.
Or even like Kansas, like, you know, Kansas was, you know, like I knew those things were out there, like Boston, but like I didn't want to be Barry Goudreau or any, you know, I wanted to be, no offense to Barry Goudreau, but yeah, like I wanted to be Ace Frehley. And so the Van Halen stuff kind of started to trickle in through older brothers and things like that. And then the one I remember, like this album just came out and somebody's older brother had it, was Women and Children first. And just that that thing, as soon as that happened, I was like, I'm going to listen to this whole thing. And them and Aerosmith were the band that replaced Kiss for me.
Right on.
Like I left the Kiss cult and joined those two cults.
Yeah, I think Women and Children first. My neighbors would lend me albums, and I think that was the first Van Halen. And I was pretty young. I was probably like 7 or 8.
Yeah, in 80 I was 12, so I was just like 6th grade.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So yeah, so I probably had that in probably 81, 82, and then the first Van Halen record I bought was 1984, which Eric, to his dismay.
Well, yeah.
Not the one to start with, but yeah. So I had a little bit of. I didn't really listen to Van Halen 1 until later.
Like I said, I mean, 1984 is a great record, but it's not, you know, it's not that middle finger that Van Halen was for us, you know. Yeah. Like I'm the same as Jimmy. I was Kiss Army from the time that I was 10, you know, painted my face for Halloween and all that stuff, and still, and they have their place and they're awesome. But man, for me, the whole point of Van Halen is like I was there for the whole arc. Like I picked up a bass when I was 15 and Van Halen came out, you know, and so I lived in LA and, you know, Van Halen 1 came out and we were all, you know, it was the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and I was already in high school and everybody was a Van Halen fan. I don't know, I mean, it's probably the same for you, Jimmy, but when I was in high school, if a band came out with an album, a big band came out with an album, everybody had it. It wasn't like, are you going to get that album? It's like, did you get it yet? And so, you know, what was the first single was...
on which album?
The first, their
it
very
was the Kinks one.
Run with the Devil.
No, that was the first song on the first record. But the first single was the Kinks.
You Really Got
Me. Okay,
So that was the first thing. But you know, it's like, you know, everybody heard it. It was on the radio, so everybody. It started to kind of trickle into. It became like the vernacular real fast.
I don't remember them on FM radio at that point. Like I'm sure California was different.
Man, like I'm old. My memory's a little foggy. I'm just, you know, I don't remember like what.
Because I remember
station
like
they were
sitting
on,
through like Boston and Kansas and going, when are they going to play some Van? And they never, you know, like that's where the older brother part of it comes in for me. It was something that was kind of passed down, and also there was like, you know, there's just the I don't know the what's the fucking word I'm looking for? Mystique to this thing where like you couldn't see it, you know, this pre-MTV, there was you couldn't watch them on Instagram or any of that. Like there was just this thing that you had, and I was too young to see them live. So it was the passing of the torch kind of thing.
It's funny, like literally Joe and I were talking about that exact thing yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there are a number of reasons to me why Van Halen will be forever the last great band of gods. You know what I mean? There's the excess that the debauchery is unacceptable these days. You know, they're going to get Me Too to death. You know what I mean? And nothing against Me Too. I'm down. But
different times, yeah.
But and it's that, and there was no access. Like what you saw of them was their pictures on the album cover, and then you'd see them in concert or a video on MTV, even when MTV, but before MTV,
or
like with Jimmy
Cream magazine, Hit Parade, or
it's
that's
like
where
it was like
then,
only the gods were in those magazines, and to me, like as a 15-year-old kid, when I looked at a rock star like that, it was like a different realm, like when they get up to go to the bathroom, they don't walk, they float, or somebody comes in and carries them on a throne.
They don't have to go to the bathroom.
It's like they don't do, like, they're not people, they don't do the things,
They don't pay bills, they just rock all the time.
That's right. They don't, like, I always had this feeling, and this may be the case with Eddie, and it's same with like some of my bass heroes, like Jocko and those guys and Stanley Clark. They were never not great. Like somebody said to Jocko, "Here's a bass," and he's like, "Oh, let me try that." And Teen Town came out. You know what I mean? And like that's how I feel about those guys. Like Eddie picked up a guitar, how many strings? 6. Okay, here's Eruption. Bam. There's never. You don't think of them as having a learning curve, or they're just. They're gods.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing with Eddie, and I saw a video earlier where he was talking about he never had any music lessons, and he said if I would have, I wouldn't have came up with all these techniques. Right. So he basically just
school will ruin you, kids.
Before we move on to that, I want to hear just because Joe's younger. I want to hear when Joe first got Van Halen.
Well, it's true. I was telling you guys before we got started, it was really around the 92, 93, because that's when I was 10, 11 years old, because I'm getting laughed at.
I love that.
I was leaving my first wife.
But I will say this, but this was an interesting time to grow up. Sorry,
that'll go
chilly. No, growing up at that time with them at that level, they had already done so much. So when I really became conscious of them with like, here's the new Van Halen album, it was Right Now, which wasn't just a single. It was a single, a video, a Pepsi campaign.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and they were already then like this like business enterprise.
Right.
There was Cabo Wabo. There was Crystal Pepsi. There was, and they were larger than anything. They were bigger than Pepsi. They were like, my God, this is... And same thing, I had older sisters, and it was like, oh yeah, Jump. That was still Van Halen too, but it was that other weird guy, David Lee Roth, who's kind of like a clown, who did videos of him in fat suits.
Right.
I like that guy.
Karate and samurai swords.
But this is really funny too, because my first, here you go, the second compact disc I ever bought was the day it came out, Van Halen Balance.
Oh.
So that was the last Sammy album.
Right.
And, it just, again, time, perspective, and all that. But, like, that was kind of my jumping on of when they were there. But when I heard all the Roth stuff, that was the stuff I fell in love with. I loved, Fair Warning still probably is my favorite. That or Two is still probably my favorite Van Halen albums. Just to sit and put on and listen to, because it's just, I don't know. But, yeah, I jumped on then. And so in 96, I got real excited. But then it was a real big letdown when, hey, we're on stage. It never really happened. But, I respect this. I mean, of course, the Sammy stuff was crucial to them. I mean, it was, those 4, what do they say? All 4 of those albums were number 1.
Yeah.
It's like, that's, I
don't think any of the first 5 were.
No.
Maybe it wasn't in 1984, no?
I don't know. But I know every Sammy album was a number 1. And they were...
It just goes to show you how little that matters.
They were huge. That was the thing to me, too, is, coming up then and seeing them, like, there was still, obviously, like we said, no Instagram, no YouTube. There wasn't like, hey, Sammy Hagar tweets like, this is what I had for breakfast. I didn't shave. That you didn't see that.
Right.
Like, all you saw was like the MTV commercial of them sitting in front of their stage that looked like the USS Van Halen going, we're going everywhere on the planet on this tour. And you were like, this is the most massive thing I've ever seen. Like, I mean, it was, bigger than words,
You have this still a great concert film. I mean,
with the parachute pants.
Live, yeah, where they had those pantalones.
Dude, the thing is, it's an era that can't come back because of the internet and social media and all that. But it's like Jimmy said, it's that mystique. There's mystery. You don't know anything about these guys, and when you see them, it's the event.
Ozzy Osbourne was the Prince of Darkness, and people
Gene
had
Simmons was
trials
the devil
about Judas Priest, and now it's just fucking Judas Priest. Ozzy Osbourne's on a history show now. It's like what happened, you know? Yeah.
So for me, that's the last great one. You can make the argument that Guns N' Roses was the last band like that, but they're not in the same stratosphere as Van Halen. So
I would put them in the
they're
stratosphere.
I would agree with Jimmy on that.
I disagree with everybody who disagrees with me. They're great. There's no doubt they're great. But here's the thing.
Dude, look at that. I mean, this is a really good thing. You look at somebody like Eddie Van Halen and where he took the guitar, and then you had this entire era of people trying to catch up to Eddie Van Halen, and then you had Slash, who didn't play anything like Eddie Van Halen and was borrowing from the guys pre-Eddie Van Halen with his own shtick on it, and that guy did as much as, I won't say as much as Eddie, but made the shift. Like, dude, you didn't have a Floyd Rose after 1989, or 1991. You had a Les Paul, and that's that. I think whether or not the band is the same thing as Van Halen, I think what Slash did is very comparable to Edward in a shift in how everybody went. The majority of players were like, "Oh, dude, I did it." This Floyd Rose sounds like shit. I'm gonna get Les Paul. Can I cuss on this?
Sure.
Okay, come on.
It's too late now.
Sure as hell hope so.
We'll bleep you out.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I mean, and we talked about this with the 90s bands. There was that thing, but and again, this is not, I'm a Pearl Jam fan, and Pearl Jam's been around for 30 years now. I still just can't view Pearl Jam the same way I view Van Halen. And it's not, I'm not diminishing Pearl Jam or
right.
I
well,
don't
it's the same way.
I'm not saying anything about Jesus as a person or thing, but
it's the same way that
your own personal Jesus.
I can't see Van Halen the same way I see Jimi Hendrix or the Beatles. Because it's that thing that's slightly before your time that, again, was kind of grandfathered in, you have to like this or you're like Led Zeppelin. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But because we lived through some of Van Halen, that I think that makes it slightly less as gigantic as the other things, even though it's gigantic.
Yeah. Right. I'm a couple years older than Jimmy, maybe a little more than a couple years older. But my
seriously, how much older are you than me?
I'm gonna be older than you this year
by
a number of years in a number of weeks.
But you still look good.
I feel my age. I'll never
colostomy bags hanging out.
I'll never look as old as I am. I'll never be as old as I feel. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll be here all week. I'll be here all week, but I won't remember it. Okay. So my journey as a musician, was at the same time as Van Halen. So I started, and there they were. It's like, okay, who do you want to be? I want to be those guys, and that was it. And then I lived in L.A., so it's Hollywood. It's where they started. Yeah. It's the clubs. I played the clubs that they played.
That's cool. Whiskey and
all of
Troubadour.
Those clubs. Whiskey, everything. But I never played the Starwood. I think that was gone by the time I started. But it was, it was the Roxy and the Whiskey and the Troubadour and just all those clubs that they played. And so I was on those stages. And the thing is, I don't know what it was like anywhere outside of LA, but in Hollywood, you had the hairband thing, and it's hard to make that connection. But even though it was the clown version of rock and roll, everyone was trying to be Van Halen, even though nobody sounded like Van Halen. And it wasn't that they didn't.
Motley Crue was trying to be Van Halen.
Of course, the reason they didn't sound like Van Halen is because they couldn't. But it wasn't because they didn't want to. Every guitar player. Here's what it is. You look at all those old bands, and I don't mean old in a disrespectful way. I mean before, the era before Van Halen. and the great bands, you know, the Who and Zeppelin and the Stones and timeless, legendary bands. Every one of those bands, you could have a legit conversation if you had to, if that was the thing. Like, who's the guy in that band? And you could have discussions all day about who's the guy in the Stones or who's the guy in. There's no discussion with Van Halen. It's Eddie. And without Eddie, you know, no disrespect to Michael, but he's, you know, he's working at a service station, and Dave's that crazy dude who, you know, wears spandex and comes in and goes, "Ow!" You know, it's like, what the hell is this guy? But they, you know, Eddie was the machine, and that was
he was like the pinnacle of that.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so
then you have the brothers. You have that like
absolutely,
the way the drums and the guitar are.
Man,
you know.
It's a very interesting thing too, because, you know, Eddie's impact on the guitar. We don't even need to talk about that. That's ridiculous. Alex, you know, had a very significant impact on the drums. It wasn't as, I think, as significant as Eddie equal to guitar.
Right.
But there was a thing with Alex where it's like, Alex has a thing. With that snare sound, all that. But even the way he plays.
hi-hat thing.
Yeah, where it's like, if you put Alex in another band, you might be like,
really fucked up.
I don't know about that. Like, you know, but like, Alex was so much a part of it. It really, to me, like that Van Halen sound, it was the brothers. It was the weird kind of greasy
and
Alex mixed with the crazy virtuosity of Eddie. You know, and then you kind of had like your circus barker in the front, you know.
That's the whole thing. He was he was a ringmaster.
Yeah.
I was anyway. I just want to finish up that point.
Sorry about that.
No, it's no problem. Keep doing this. This is what we're here for.
It's fun. Yeah, I'm having a blast.
All the bands were trying to be Van Halen. That was the blueprint and the roadmap, and that was whatever it was trying to be.
Yeah.
But you have Eddie to thank for the reason that every band had that guitar player. And I don't know how. Again, I don't know how it was outside of LA, but in LA, your band was only as good as your lead guitar player. Like, you know, there was just all they were all guys were like superhuman players. Everyone, even guys you hadn't heard of. You're like, what the hell planet was this guy on? And that's all because of Eddie.
Yeah.
All the great cats, and some of the cats that are still doing it today from then. It's all because of Eddie.
Yeah.
And it's not the whole great guitar player thing, but the way it was, like like the guitar player, like the Michael Jordan of guitar, you know, like sports guitar.
Absolutely,
you know? That and it was like, and it was, you know, bands were cutting heads. It was the truth. Like, you'd go in and, you know, your band would be watching the other band and soundcheck. How good's their guitar player? All right, I better go warm up, and, you know, I'm gonna.
How did that make you feel as a bass player?
I had a gig. That's all I cared about. I was in a band. I was getting the chicks. That's look. No disrespect.
The leftover chicks.
I was the guitar player.
I didn't play guitar, but I was the good-looking kid in my band. All right. So, you know, I picked up bass because everybody played guitar and drums. So I'm like, okay, if I pick up bass and, you know, I can pump out a couple of notes, we can play some songs like AC/DC and the chicks will come running. But, you know, like, I got good pretty quick, so I'm like, I think I could actually do this. And so, you know, I was playing in bands on the Sunset Strip, and like, my band liked my bass playing, but honestly, nobody gave a shit about bass players back then. Seriously, it's like, I don't know if anybody gives a shit about bass players now, but they definitely didn't back then. And so for me, I guess I have to thank, like, I don't know, Flea, maybe?
Or Les Claypool.
Or for people paying attention to bass players. But Flea
Paul
was more.
McCartney is the guy to think.
Yeah, but nobody cared. But back then it wasn't, honestly, as great as McCartney is, and he's a legend. Back then, nobody really cared. Dude, seriously.
The Rage Against the Machine guy is another, like, modern bass player that people go like,
Tim
that's
Comerford,
a good guy. Yeah.
Best bass tone on earth. Yeah. But here's the funny thing. It's like kind of related to this. Like, everybody got rid of their Fenders. Everybody got rid of their, you know, their P basses and their Strats and all this stuff. And, you know, for Charvels and Kramers and all that crap. And now today, those guys... Like, thank God I was too young to have, like, a real Fender, so all of my basses were those stupid basses to start with. So I don't have that story of, God, I sold my Fender and I got an aluminum neck Kramer, you know, and I think those guys.
Yeah, that's a funny story. Like, I remember filling into the guitar shop one day, and there was the Guitar Aficionado magazine, but it was one with Eddie on the cover. It was like the Eddie Van Halen collection. And there was a great story in there. What was the guitar shop, Jimmy, that was out in St. Charles?
Oh, St. Charles Guitar Exchange.
Was that the guy who kind of
that was Dan. They were buddies.
So there was a great story in there, and this to me was like summed up Eddie, which made me laugh. Was one interview I saw with him too, where he's talking about gear, and he was just like, you know, I mean, I built this one, and I didn't know how to wire anything, so I just ripped this shit out. And that guy, Dan,
scientist.
I guess, brought him like a 60-something Strat in like mint condition one day at like Riverport. He goes, hey, man, you know, and the story's in there. And Eddie's like, hey, he hands me this guitar, and I'm like, this is cool. And Dan's like, yeah, man, that's a 63 Strat mint. And Eddie's like, I'll take it. And he goes, cool, all right, man. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, I grabbed a screwdriver, and then I just scratched EVH into it. And he goes, I looked up, and Dan's face was like dead. And he goes, what did you do that for? He goes, now I know it's mine. And he's just like, and he goes, you just like that's like a
dude.
He added
$10,000 to the price of that guitar.
Didn't give a shit, you know, just. And like he had a picture of it there, and you could see it on like EVH just right on the.
Dude, if I had the money, I've always like because I would go down to the guitar conventions, and there's all this worship of these old guitars that are like tigers in cages that no one's ever they're never gonna eat anything ever again. They're just gonna get fed stuff, you know, like nobody's gonna play these guitars,
right?
And I always said, man, if I had the dough, I would walk in there with a tech right next to me with like a big tool belt, and I would buy an old guitar, and I'd be like, we're going to put the humbucker right here, and just like, and just like, you know.
Just walk into the Franklin guitar show.
Yeah, just like take an old guitar and be like, I think this needs a humbucker. What do you think? You got your router? Yeah. Do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, here's my 1959 P bass. I put a jazz bass pickup right by the bridge. Yeah.
The beauty, and this is one of the beauties of about Eddie, and we can talk about this more, but like how much he changed gear. And when I wrote a thing about Van Halen 2 and just about Eddie in general, and back then when he was coming up, Fender guitars had single coil pickups, and Gibson guitars had humbucking pickups or P90s or whatever. And he was the first guy to go, well, what happens if you put a Gibson pickup in a Fender guitar? And that is the whole, like, you can hear, like, if you listen to Van Halen 0, the Simmons demos, he's still playing a Stratocaster. You know, really? That's a single coil pickup, and that's the only element of his sound, of the Brown sound, that's not there yet on those demos. Is it's still got that, it's still got the Ritchie Blackmore and the Hendrix, and like that stuff is still on top. And Van Halen 1 is the crystallization of humbucking pickup, you know, Gibson pickup and Fender guitar, and that makes it go boom. Wow. And no one had ever thought of that prior to him. And that's where the Super Strats came from. That's where like all of a sudden every Fender type guitar had a Gibson type pickup in it, and that was the basis of his whole thing. I mean, other than the other complex elements that he did a whole bunch of trickery and
hot wiring.
Yeah. I mean, there was all kinds of things, and I don't even think he knows exactly what he did back then. Like, because one of the biggest things with him was where the echo was placed, and it's one of the reasons I think that I still can't play a dry amplifier is because there's on the recordings there's a plate reverb and there's also a slapback, and if you sit in a car and you listen to a Van Halen record, the dry is in the right speaker, and then all the echo and everything that's bouncing is in the left speaker, and that's what gives it that. And that's Don Landee who engineered all those records, and but that, like, where the echo came in was kind of somehow after, like, if you plug an Echoplex into the front of a Marshall amp and crank it up, it goes and it's like super loud, and the echo's too much. But if you put that echo after that amp is happening, before it hits the speaker, all of a sudden it's this, like you're in a room with something, and it's happening. And that was like just some of the things that were simple things now with the technology that we had, but that he figured out with his ears, that made the Brown sound, that spawned everybody that made gear for the next 20 years.
It's almost like, well, it's what makes him, it's what made him a genius. It's almost like reverse engineering. It's not like he said, let's see what it'll sound like if I do this. It's like he had this sound in his head and like, how the fuck do I get this sound? That's the thing. It's like, this is what I want to sound like, and nobody's doing this, so how do I figure it out? And then I was just at Dan Fazio's house. Yeah. And Jimmy's going to understand this better than me, and you'll have to elaborate on it because it was genius to me. We were listening to Unchained and Mean Streets, and I think they're both drop D, right? At least Unchained is, right?
Unchained is drop D.
Okay,
yeah.
So he did a tuning thing where the guitar was slightly out of tune to make it sound the way it did, but it was like an intentional thing that he did. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, he used to use the Eventide harmonizer a lot for stuff like that. That would slightly. That would put it like 2 cents off of.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. Yeah. That's fucking brilliant. And there's nothing.
Well, it's that, and
more ferocious than that sound.
It's lowering the wattage or lowering the voltage. Nobody had ever heard of a Variac until Eddie Van Halen happened, and he would take an amp that was supposed to be seeing 110 or whatever, and he would drop it down to 89. So the amp's just going, where's the rest of the stuff? And then you can jack it up more, and it gets, and all these people that he was playing with were, the Ted Nugents and the Joe Perrys, and these guys had their rigs and everything sounded awesome, and they heard this, and they're like, how is that happening? And he was doing these kind of scientific and yet at the same time really primal ways of, well, I want this to have more juice. He was using the same stuff they were using. He just applied very small things that had giant, seismic changes in how the end result of, and then you put his hands into the equation, and you have a whole other thing.
It can't be understated that those modifications and those things were, nobody had done them. They were his. He did them. Like, that's amazing to me. And it's very few. Like, I'm one of those people who feels like everybody's got a talent, but it's like the lucky few who find what that is. Yeah. I mean, talk about a guy who found what he was put on earth to do. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. There was a thing about that band. I think that Rick Beato video where he was talking about, what Van Halen was, and all that was very interesting because I think there's obviously there's Eddie. Obviously, there's Alex. Obviously, there's those things. But when you even get farther down the line of like the vocal harmonies,
Michael,
the songs, even the weird little breakdowns where it's always just like hey babe, hello, how are you? And like Ted Templeman talking like,
come on, Dave, give me a break.
Stuff like that was just like,
you'll get some leg tonight for sure.
Yeah, like what was any of that? I mean,
that's all Dave for sure.
I think there was
that was a carnival atmosphere.
Absolutely.
In the David Lee Roth autobiography, which is just everyone buy it. There was a great story in there where he was talking about.
I felt so sad for him at the end of that book.
I have not read that yet.
Dude,
it's like 20-something years old.
I'll have to read it.
Like by the end of it, you're just like, this is really.
What is it? Everything But the Sun or something?
Crazy
from. Okay, not even close.
And he does this. He talks about this great story about.
Okay. You come back to this. Yeah. It's basically, imagine Fonzie writing a book at 35. That's what it is.
Fonzie.
Some chapters are like 3 sentences. And
so the Tuscadero twins.
Like, what? Chapter over. But he did have a great. There's a ton of great stories in there where he talks about they were recording Women and Children First, and he goes. And one day I woke up and
You got to do it in the voice, man.
One day I woke up, man, and I was like, I'm going to jog today. And he's like, talks about how he jogged and he had a smoothie and he did push-ups and he ate a salad and he came in and they're like, okay, Dave, roll. And he was like, I've seen a lot of people that are looking for a movie. And Ted Templeman was like, what? No, stop. What was that? And he goes, well, I'm jogging. And the talkback came on and he hears Ted Templeman say something like, Somebody get him 3 joints and 2 cheeseburgers stacked. And then you have sheep-a-lapa people that ba-hoopa-fapa-moopy. And it's like, that's it. I mean, but I mean, like, we were talking about the live concerts.
Oh, my God.
To the bootlegs and you're like, okay, here comes the first verse.
Nope.
And then at the end, you just hear, "Ow!" And the chorus hits, and you're like, "No, or not."
And then the harmonies are spot on.
And then Michael Anthony.
Having never seen them at the height of their powers, the things that I have seen, like, I'm glad that I didn't see it. Like, even though like the rest of the thing is awesome, but they're obviously coked out of their skulls. Everything is twice as fast, probably way louder than it needs to be. Dave never, like, I don't know how they got him to sing on those records, because if you hear him on those albums, he's great. There's a rhythm to it.
Yeah. Swings,
you know, like where he's landing, like, is rhythmically correct.
It's
and
killing.
Then to see him do that live and have no, it's like he's listening to, it's like another band or something. And
yeah, you know, I was saying to Joe yesterday, there's that really famous video a couple years ago of Motley Crue and Vince Neil.
Yeah.
You know, you know what I'm talking about, like Vince Neil singing it. Yeah, and it's just, and then somebody puts subtitles underneath it.
Oh, yeah.
That was Roth every song.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he'd hit a word like blah, and then nothing would happen, and then go wow,
you know,
and then the harmonies would come in, and then he'd miss the next line, but he'd be swinging his hips and jumping around. And
he's
then
a showman.
his
Dude,
whole
sure.
job was to point at Eddie.
I love Romeo Delight. It's one of my favorite Van Halen songs, and I've never seen him sing the fucking song. Not one fucking, like, see my ID, want to clip my wings, don't have to show you proof of anything. He never sang that line. Ever. Not once. Like, that was his, I forgot the word.
But I'll bet he sang,
you know?
I know the law, friend. That's the part he got.
Yeah.
You know, this is interesting, though, because you were saying, Eric, that you saw them on the Diver Down tour.
83.
Whoa,
So,
nice.
Was that the show?
Okay, so it didn't. You see, here's the thing that Jimmy's might be missing. Like you say that you're glad you didn't see that in a lot of ways.
Oh, dude, if I had seen it in 1983, I would have been like, woohoo. Like, I totally would have loved it.
So I was 19, all right, and it was one of my first big rock concerts. But like I said, like at that point,
Where was that? What venue?
It was at the Forum in LA.
Oh, cool.
So at that point, they were the vernacular.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was, Van Halen wasn't a band; it was a word in the English language.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was just like Joe said, like the stage looked like the deck of an aircraft carrier, and they had that backdrop with all the speakers, and so the lights.
Those were actual speakers.
No, there was a backdrop behind that.
Oh, okay.
That was like to the literal ceiling, and at the top it was like speakers that looked like they were going to tip over. And when you see that, your initial thought was, "Oh my God!" And then you realize it's backdrop. But then they had those walls of speakers and the 18 kick drums, with each kick drum had 24 little drums, and it was like it was just everything was bigger than life.
Yeah.
And so it didn't matter that he wasn't singing. Nobody cared. You know, the lights came. When the lights came on, like it opened up and the strobe lights are going, and then that's when everybody knows, here it comes. And then they, forget what they opened with, but it opens on a big chord, and the lights come on, and Roth jumps from on top of the kick drums. He must be 20 feet in the air, does the splits, lands, bounces,
Holy
the band
shit.
like he's a professional gymnast.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable,
Yeah.
like just ridiculous. And they go into Running with the Devil, and Michael Anthony, he's playing it with his teeth, and it's
Yeah.
bomb. And he's just like he's built like a fist. He's like a fist with a bass and a beard. And Alex is an animal. It's so like the detail.
Well, that's the thing, musician-wise.
Dude.
I mean, even if Dave was off, just the power of the music.
But it doesn't
was
matter.
just-
All
was
that.
just
But
like,
then
whoa.
there's Eddie, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Dude,
everybody
I think
else can
my
be
favorite
fucking
thing
off,
about the
but-
Diver Down drum kit was the fire extinguisher that just went in between the kick drums and was used.
Well, yeah, 'cause
on
the-
multiple
Dude,
occasions.
The whole
I had a
riser
friend
goes- the whole
that
riser
saw
goes
that
on
tour
fire.
That was on acid, and at one point he saw the black and white striped drums, and then Alex's sunglasses were the size of like a minivan on top of so it was just like arms and sunglasses
and fire.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, I still tell a story today. Like, Eddie does a guitar solo, and I've told the story many times, and it's it's based on memory, and memory is malleable, and technically your memory is only of the last time you remembered it. It's not of the actual event. Things change over time. But I went back and watched a video of the Diver Down tour yesterday, and it was exactly
cool.
Like I was seeing things. I'm like, I still remember. So the Eddie solo, he plays for 20 minutes.
Holy
And it's
shit.
just him on stage. I think Alex is still on the kit because he interjects some, hi-hats every once in a while and a boom, boom, boom.
Some scattly booms.
Yeah, some scattly booms. But there's one point, like, he's Eddie's playing all his greatest hits, and the night that I saw them, he was perfect, right? At least that's how I remember it. And it was the overalls with the red tiger stripes, right?
Yeah.
And one point in this, the crowd was wrapped, so silence. Like when he was playing, it was silence. Like he'd go into little guitars, and it was just a hush. And at one point, he just sat on the edge of the stage, which was like 40 feet in the air, and his legs dangling over the end. And just sat like if I said, "Hey Jimmy, play me something," he'd sit down and he'd play it. That's what it was, and it was like he's playing to you, and it was like the best playing you ever heard. And it was 20 minutes, and when he was done, like we weren't ready for it to be done. And trust me, I've told Joe enough times how I feel about guitar players. I don't want to hear a guitar player play for 5 minutes, much less 20 minutes. Sorry, Jimmy, but 20 minutes, like I'm like
I wouldn't do it.
And that's why you're a professional.
So really quick, just the whole like Dave jumping off the drum riser thing. I'll do this as fast as I can. A buddy of mine worked for Cinderella, who was opening for David Lee Roth.
I was at that.
On the Eat 'em and Smile.
I saw that tour. Amazing.
Well, they, when you have an arena show like that, there's a symmetry as to how everything comes on and off the stage and where it's stored and all these things. And they were getting to these gigs, and they were like, "What the fuck is on the drum case?" Like the drum cases had like stuff on them and stunk, and they were like, what is happening?" And so, and like every day, like they clean them off, and the next day it was the same stink, and they're like, what's going on? And apparently on the Eat 'em and Smile tour, Dave would start off on top of the drums, like above the drums. And he had this little spot where he would stand up there, and what he liked to do was he would get up there before the lights went out, and when the lights went out, he would pee off of the top of the thing of where he was. He loved to hear like 20,000 people screaming, and while he was taking a piss, that was like one of his favorite things. And he was peeing all over Cinderella's drum cases every night.
Oh my god!
And
Amazing.
so that's like some of the thing that's so gigantic about Van Halen is like you get to a point where you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I guess I got to pee while 20,000 people are screaming.
That was Sammy Hagar's book. He wrote the story about how on the 5150 tour, Alex was such a drunk that it was like 4 tall boys a Schlitz every 3 songs, and the record company hired a second drum tech to hold a trash can for him to spin around and piss off of, and the stage would go black after every 4 songs. So Alex could spin around, pull it out, whiz in the trash can, spin around. And there was someone paid to do that. Right. And I'm like,
probably paid pretty well, too.
Yeah,
probably
paid. Piss boy.
Yeah. That's the whole point. That's the whole point I was making when we first started talking. Like it can never it can never happen again thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's not going to be another band again that there's a Lamborghini at the bottom of the swimming pool and it just stays there because I got another one in the garage.
Harry Styles' drummer is not going to have a piss tech.
Yeah, there's just not gonna be that smashing hotel rooms. Not that I advocate that. But I'm just saying, it's like that, like what Jimmy said, that whole mystique, like you don't know them, they're gods, they're not people, and they do these things, and we used to be sitting out front of the Troubadour, and Dave would shoot by on his chopper with no helmet, and his assless chaps and his hair flying behind him, and he wasn't going anywhere, he was just doing it to be seen. All these fucking copycats are going to be over at the Troubadour. Let me roll by. That's not going to happen. None of that stuff's going to happen anymore. They were the last legendary rock and roll band. There will be bands that play rock and roll, but there will never be another legendary rock and roll band of gods again, and they were the last one.
But looking at in the pop culture aspects, look at Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Spicoli, and you know, there's VH's. You know, he's like
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted. You know, this the John Cusack movie, Better Off Dead.
Yeah.
Where they had the animation where the hamburger is like Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. You know, everybody wants some. Yeah. So, I mean, just like huge, iconic. So, yeah, that's just that pop culture aspect of Van Halen. Even if you didn't listen to Van Halen, you knew who Van Halen was in some way. Yeah. You know, Beat It. You know, just him, Eddie, he drives up in his car. He's got his gear in his car, and he's just the dude just grabbing his gear out of his car. What do you want me to play?
Right.
And then he just, you know, tears it up like, let me try something, and it's just like iconic, and it's so humble. You know, just a genius. You know, funny, a blessing and a curse, I think, from you know, just what we know about him.
Oh,
the Michael Jackson connection.
Yeah,
Slash also played with Michael Jackson and recorded with him too.
Right. Well, that's an interesting. That's another well, who's the hot guitar player?
Yeah,
Steve Stevens. I just listened to an interview with him. Yeah,
dude, I remember the first time I heard "Beat It." So I remember the moment because I was with my friends in a car. I was in the back seat, kind of had my, you know, like my arms on each seat and my head in the middle. We were talking and the radio was on, and we knew Michael Jackson there was a new album, and you know, we were all just music fans, so we were excited about that. And the first single was "Beat It." It came on, and nobody knew. Like, there was no announcement, Eddie Van Halen playing with Michael Jackson. There was nothing. It just came on. And like the second it came on, we all looked at each other, Eddie! Like, you knew. Yeah. Like, you needed a millisecond to know who that was.
Yeah.
Right? That's, you know, and it's out of context. Like, you know, if you're hearing, you know, wow, you know, Eddie's coming in a second, but it was like, you don't expect shredding Eddie sound. And then just one note in, you're like, we knew. And it doesn't make us special because everyone knew. But like the second you heard it, you knew who it was. Yeah. That's special.
I think one of the things that's amazing about him is, like, if you look at any of the guitar players that we all go back to, like Eddie Van Halen was the only guy that never did anything that wasn't Eddie Van Halen. Like, if you listen to Jeff Beck in 1974, and Jeff Beck is always amazing.
Unbelievable.
But if you listen to Jeff Beck in 74 and you listen to Jeff Beck in 84 and 94, those are stylistically different approaches, to the instrument, to tonally, to like all these things. Even, you know, we've talked about Slash, you know, who was faster and then slowed down and then, you know, still has this thing, but there have been kind of shifts. Like Eddie Van Halen was that he never didn't do anything that didn't sound like Eddie Van Halen, you know? And all the, you know, all those guys, they have a voice, but I just think his voice was so unique. And so, like, if you slow down his stuff, a lot of it is wrong. Like, if you played through those things over the chord changes that he's doing them over, it's like, this is bad. Like, but when he did it, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like, and that's what I think, like, when I read a thing with Ted Templeman comparing him to, like, Coltrane. Yeah. You know, where you have this, like, just fluid ideas and conceptualizations of these things that
in real time
work
in real time
that he made work and made perfect sense. And that's what I think is,
and it's not just harmonically; it's rhythmically too. Like listen to any of his solos and just try and figure out. Like, go ahead and write it. Like, you know, just transcribe it on paper. You can't, because the rhythm doesn't work. Like, it's not, but it's right in the pocket. It's unbelievable, man.
And he spoke with that instrument, and a lot of times, you know, it was like another singer, but he was singing through his guitar.
Well, there was no, you know, like Joe and I talk all the time. Like, the journey of every musician is to bridge that gap from your ear to your hands. He didn't have that. There was no gap. You know, he was like, it's just his thoughts just spewed out into his hands. So I was talking about this with with another buddy, with Dan today. I was like, he didn't play parts and like, okay, here's the verse part and here's the chorus part. He just played music and it just came out, and it was just.
That's Alex too. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the one thing I was going to say is as much as we can bag on David Lee Roth, you try putting a fucking melody line over half of that shit, and that's the genius of David. For whatever I can bag on the guy for, you put "Thought You Never Missed Me Till I Got a Back City Address" over that section of music. Yeah. Like if somebody gave you, then you go, whoa, like that's not going to work. Like.
No, well, we were bagging on him live, but on the records, he's brilliant.
There's no bagging on David Lee Roth. He is
not on the records anyway.
Fantastic.
Dude, David Lee Roth made me miss a whole bunch of music. I'm kind of pissed at David Lee Roth, just because the whole rock critics like Elvis Costello, because most rock critics look like Elvis Costello. That was a direct quote. And I was like, yeah, man, Elvis Costello sucks. Like, as soon as when I was a kid and I read that, and I was like, and the Talking Heads and Blondie and all these things that I like now were like, fuck those guys because they look like Elvis Costello.
Right.
Yeah, kind of same here, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're a kid, especially when you learn what's cool, you don't do the other things. You just do what's cool. Like in Van Halen was the definition of cool. And look, man, just to clear it up, Dave was as intrinsic to the sound of Van Halen as anybody. It was
clearly. Look at the records.
He was honestly all of them. It was just an absolutely brilliant combination of players. The power trio was unbelievable, and nobody could. You're right. Nobody could have sung over that stuff and made it as cool as he did, as is evidenced by Van Hagar. I'm just saying.
I'm a huge fan of Van Hagar, so I'll stand by it.
Being someone who grew up in Van Hagar, I'll defend it. But it is funny though, because when you look at like the Live Without a Net video, which somebody brought up, I don't remember who brought it. Okay. Yeah. Like, I remember getting that tape as a kid, and here's Van Halen with mullets and parachute pants, and Eddie's playing a Steinberger, and you're like, hello. And, like, Alex's kit is like Simmons drum toms, and you're like, what the fuck went wrong here? But you still watch it, and you're like, this is really
I fucking
cool.
love it. Yeah.
But then you, like, rewind 2 years, and you're like, here's Roth and fucking Roto Toms, and fuck you. And you're like,
it's like two different bands, though. That's what I love. That's what I love, because I can't, I don't want to have to pick one, because I love the Roth era. I love the Hagar era.
If you had to pick one.
I mean, I would. I'm
pick one.
I'm a huge Sammy Hagar fan, so I would.
Wrong choice.
Well, I'll stick
did you grow
with
up here?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, Eric.
Probably.
Is that
it's like, Sammy's a Midwest thing for sure.
Oh, he's a St. Louis.
Yeah, it's a St. Louis,
man.
Totally St. Louis thing. When I moved here at 16, I remember driving around with my friends on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, and they played Rock and Roll Weekend, and I was like, I've never heard this song. What is this? And they're like, dude, it's Sammy Hagar. I'm like, who's Sammy Hagar?
Where are you from?
All over the place, but I got to St. Louis at 15.
From where?
Upstate New York,
okay.
Cincinnati, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and then I was born on Travis Air Force Base in California.
All right. I was born in New York. I was in New York till I was 15, and then I lived in L.A. for 20 years. But my whole musical journey was L.A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So look,
but I want to go back to Sammy Hagar.
I want to do that. I want to talk about Sammy Hagar too.
But I love the fact that I look at and his solo stuff was all right. It was good for what it was. But the thing
rock
was,
and roll.
He had said, Eddie inspired him so much, and after the D.O.A. tour, he was reading a lot of books on spirituality, this and that. But Eddie inspired him so much that it was just that melding. I think it really brought him up like so many levels. And
inspired Sammy, you mean?
Oh, definitely,
definitely.
Sure. Eddie's just his genius, that inspiration.
There's no question, man.
Then even with a solo afterwards, it's just like it's like a whole different energy level.
Sure.
Look, Sammy's a great rock and roller.
Dude, when you think of 5150, say what you will about it.
Dude, Sammy Hagar is a better singer than David.
Oh, of course.
Sure. And that album had, of course. Here we go. At 5150, that album was huge.
There's like every song.
Good Enough, Why Can't This Be Love, Dreams, Summer Nights,
Lame.
Best of Both Worlds,
Love Summer Nights.
No,
the song 5150.
Yeah,
that
record was
terrible.
It was huge.
No, look, I'm just kidding.
Big enough to wear parachute pants and Steinbergers.
Your pantalones, and you're like,
look. Let me just. I'll be straight here. Yeah. Like, Sammy's awesome. I know he's a great artist. It's just for me, like I grew up on.
Oh, and I understand that. Yeah.
Hold on,
I understand.
But you're
I might think
and you're not from St. Louis, so
I'm an LA boy.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like it's just like for me, like the whole like rebellious thing about rock and roll. That's what Van Halen represented to me, and I just felt like the Sammy version was a cleaned up. That's not what I wanted from Van Halen.
Yeah, I agree.
And
with that.
even like it sounded like they had money. Okay, we're going to take $80 billion and make a crystal clean record. And I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to hear Dave go burping into a microphone and like let's see what happens. Yeah. There was no let's see what happens on those Sammy records.
Yeah.
That was all over those first records.
Yeah.
It was like. Somebody,
Send
I think it was Jennifer Batten,
email
said
to Eric Grossman at gmail.com.
City of St. Louis. Eric Grossman lives on 124 Parchment Lane.
Sammy, if you come, bring some tequila.
Yeah. But the thing was, I think Eddie wanted that, wanted something different, and that inspired him as well. And he wanted to play keyboards. I saw that video I sent you guys.
I don't have to like it. That's
you don't have to like it, but he wrote Right Now in '83. So when he was like, I got all these tapes, and
I know I saw that video.
That wall of tapes, and he's like, yeah, and my fucking computer crashed, and I don't even know what the fuck I had.
Dude, Jimmy texted us.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck is on those
tapes,
imagine? Man? Oh my God! I mean, hopefully Wolfie one day is.
I hope so.
I had a friend of mine
this is like that's gold.
A friend of mine sent me an article that said that that Valerie Wolfie and Eddie's new wife were like okay with someone coming in and essentially being like, take the tapes and document it. So they're going to.
Oh, that's cool, man.
They're going to pull the tapes out and catalog everything and try to find stuff, which I'm actually.
Good luck.
You know what? I'll tell you what.
Dude, there's going to be some stuff. Hey, what do you think of this?
Hey, I mean, I don't even know. You let me go. Wow. All right, I'm single. Yeah.
Dude, I was just, this is another genius, but like Les Paul, when Les Paul died, they sold everything that the guy ever owned. You could buy like his turtlenecks and his old driver's licenses and all this stuff. And there was stuff that like they were like owned by Les Paul, and it was a guitar that he was like, "Hey Benny, give me that chisel," and like had like ruined a guitar, like because he was a tinkerer and he would do things. And I'm waiting for all the Eddie Van Halen guitars where he like slipped with the belt sander and like, this one going over
here.
But
he had so many fucking guitars in that studio that was like pieces, and he's like, I don't even know what the fuck I was doing.
Cello.
Dude, you know,
a broken cello,
Eddie tells this story. He was friends with Les Paul. And he tells a story that he was in his, he was having a problem with guitar picks, like he couldn't hold on to them, and so he was tinkering with guitar picks and trying to, and so he called up Les Paul one night, and Les is like, "What are you working on?" And he's like, "Well, I'm having trouble with my guitar picks, so I'm taking sandpaper and I'm gluing." And Les Paul goes, "That's exactly what I'm doing right now." Yeah, it's incredible.
And then he had those metal picks. And
that's what he blamed those for his mouth cancer. Yeah. That he used to hold them, and he said he got tongue cancer in exactly the place where he held those copper picks.
There was a great story.
Had nothing to do with the smoking.
In Sammy Hagar's book where like Van Halen would take a few years off, and then Eddie would call him, "Come to 5150." And he'd be like, cool. And he'd like pull up to the house, open the door, and like fucking cobwebs and just empty bottles all over the floor. And Eddie'd be sitting there with like camo pants and a bottle of wine and like workout gloves. He'd be like, pull up a mic, Sam. It's just like, I wish I could have been there for that. That's
but actually, my a buddy of mine who's a cinematographer, he was subleasing his place in, my brain is. What's the Muscle Beach in
Santa Monica?
No, not Santa Monica.
Venice,
yeah. So this dude, I guess, did a book. He like lived at 5150 for a year and documented everything.
Was it in Venice?
Yeah, well,
in Venice?
Well, Venice was where my buddy was subleasing, but the guy like lived at 5150 and was just documenting all this. And I think there's a book out. And I have to find out this cat's name and all that, but that had to be wild.
I can't imagine.
Oh my God, that had to be crazy.
I love that video where he's like walking Chris Connolly through, and he gets upstairs, and there's like the guy with like a soldering gun. He goes, "This is George. He's my engineer." And then the guy's just like, He just like walk by. I'm like, what the fuck is the guy working in your house? Like, just like, what the hell?
And he was just like mad scientist. He's like, oh yeah, man.
They'd be like, showing, like, tell you about, oh hey, come downstairs to my basement. Okay. You go down to the stairs, just a guy. Oh, that's Frank. He's my plumber, but he just worked. You know,
he's always here.
We're taking all the pipes out of the house.
But I love with the studio. He's
We're replacing them with guitar strings.
Fuck, I knocked this wall out, and the engineers are like, we don't know how to do this. I said, put up a fucking post. Put up a post. And they're like, Eddie, you're like an engineer. I mean, that's so fucking brilliant.
I know. I'm so brilliant.
Like, put up a fucking post, a steel post.
All right, let's switch gears here.
Never.
No, we have to. It's important.
Put up a poll.
Are we going to talk about me?
I'm going to talk to you, because here's the thing. Like,
we're going to talk about OU 812.
Yeah, a deep dive.
OU 812.
Deep dive into the 8th cut on OU 8. Okay, here's the thing. Like, Jim, you know, obviously everybody knows Eddie for the, you know, that like incendiary solos and but he's the best rhythm guitar player
Fucking
I have ever heard in my life. And
I mean,
Jimmy,
he served the song, man. He was like,
go buddy, tell me about it.
No, I never learned any of that stuff. I never learned his
riffs.
Like,
you mean?
No. Like I could play Van Halen songs, and I know people that have like really
Obed.
Obed's probably one of the better people I've ever heard do it.
Oh yeah.
Where it's very human and incredibly dead on. Obed's
freaking
beyond
brilliant.
Reproach. And my favorite part about Obed is he can do Hendrix as
should
well
have
as
had
he
Obed
can,
here.
Yeah, as well as he can do Eddie Van Halen. He can do Jimi Hendrix, and but that's like, I know a bunch of guys that spent high school and thereafter learning Van Halen song, and they can't
solos
do
or everything.
just the whole thing, and then they can't do anything but sound like Eddie Van Halen.
Neither can
and that
Eddie.
was I approached it as a feel, and as I was more into the tone than I was what he did, like, because I knew that I could never do it, and if I could do it, all I would be doing was sounding like Eddie Van Halen. So, you know, it's a rabbit hole that, and I've known people that have gotten great satisfaction being able to play the beginning of Mean Street. I couldn't do it if you gave me $1 million. And it's awesome. And I remember taking that to my guitar teacher in 1981, who was like
taking a record, you mean?
Well, you had to drop off the record the week, like you would bring him the record the week before, and then he would come back the following week and go, okay, listen to this, and
he wasn't there the next week.
But this was my first guitar teacher, and he was awesome. I really liked him, but he was kind of that like, you know, Jeff Beck, you know, mid-70s. You know, guitar player guy, had a beard, you know, like, and I remember him coming back with that record and going, I have no idea how he's doing this. And he was an incredibly competent, you know, very, very good guitar player, and said, I don't know what is happening. Like, the one thing he mentioned was, do you have any idea how loud he is playing? And I was like, no.
Like, was he asked, like he knew or he didn't know?
He had no, he knew. Like, he had a Marshall, but he didn't do that to it, you know. And
he didn't understand how to make it that loud, but do that.
Like, all that kind of stuff. He was like, do you have any idea how loud that is for it to make it do that? I was like, nope. I got a PV Bandit 55, and I want to make it sound just
Those
like
are
that.
great amps.
Yeah. You know. And so the thing with today, where you can go Mean Street, Van Halen, and watch 5 guys do that, and in front of your face, none of that existed.
Oh, no.
None of the
Right.
You know, all those like, here's how this solo goes. Like, nobody had done that. It wasn't available. Nobody knew anything.
Dude, it was drop the needle and figure it out.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, and this is like this is the point where Joe's had 2 9% beers where I say, that's fucked everything up, because that's the problem with all of it is like,
you kids in your YouTube.
The goddamn thing is, it's the overstimulation. But it's like, it's all that stuff.
Well, he said
like,
stimulation, so we know we had a couple of beers.
Look out, it's getting... but the thing was, though, you're right. Like, we joked about this recently where there was a point in time where the only thing you had was to save $50 and go buy the Mel Bay VHS tape of, like, you know, Mel McMullet teaches you the Van Halen guitars, and it was a guy on like when the first time you put it on, it had tracking. It was already bad when you bought, and that was all you had.
It was called the Doug Marks Metal Method.
There you go. And
you know I'm right.
I do. That was all that was out there, and like, yeah, I mean, there is that thing nowadays of like over information. I mean, like Hot for Teacher. I remember same thing with Hot for Teacher. I remember sitting there going, "What in God's green earth is going on here?" And I remember like my next door neighbor being like, "Well, there's like 8 drum tracks on that." I'm like, "That's not real." And then like the neighbor was like, "Cardboard box." I'm like, "That's also not a real thing." And now you could like Google that and have like 50 guys with 90 HD cameras and Pro Tools in their house teaching you lick for lick Hot for Teacher. Yeah. And like that's cool, but I liked pro wrestling when I thought Hulk Hogan was getting killed. Right. Like I didn't want to know that it was all script. Like come on.
Yeah.
Like
I was talking to Ethan. For listeners, Ethan's my 19-year-old son who is
total punk.
Total punk. First year of college. He's a music major. He's got like he's 19. He's already got 4 basses and
music
keyboard.
major. Let's close that. He's a bass player.
Boo.
He also plays a little guitar, plays a little trumpet, plays a little keyboard. I'm bragging because I do. I'm
he has 4 basses. Is that what you're saying?
He has 4, but I'm quite fond of him. But that's not the point. Like
Eric's going to buy his basses off of his kid.
I am, just so I can have some decent gear. I'm not.
This is a picture of Ethan.
We talk music all the time, which is
cool,
awesome.
Man. That's cool.
It's the dude. We're gonna have something. Even if he hates me, we'll still have something to bond over in 10 years. But I tell him all the time.
You're 70?
Yeah. Look, easy, pal. Almost 70. He finds stuff he likes, and first of all, here's the thing: like he can discover 25 new bands today if he wants to. Like, you know what I mean? We weren't even able to do that. You'd hear like somebody would say, "I was listening to Miles Davis." You're like, "Who the fuck is Miles Davis?" And okay, let me wait. Let me sit by the radio. Well, that's never going to play. Okay, how do I even find out what that is? Well, go look at your grandpa's record collection. Or you'd hear something on the radio and go, "Ooh, I love that song. I want to learn it." So you sit with you have a tape recorder with a cassette, and you wait by the radio for it to come on, and you push play and record, and you hope the DJ doesn't fuck it up by talking over the first half of the song. Or you go, "Oh, I'm going to learn this," and you get on your bicycle and you ride down to the local record shop, and they don't have it. So here's $10. Call me when it comes in 3 weeks, and then you come home and you drop the needle on it 50 times.
Yeah.
And, they just don't understand how hard it was for us.
And this is what you had to do before Van Halen.
Yeah. For me to learn an Iron Maiden bass part, I had to walk uphill in the snow, 3 feet of snow both ways.
After milking the cow,
I had to bale hay to make enough money. But I know. Gosh,
so we had to build the club every night before we played it.
I feel like we've just the three
We've
of us
become our
have
grandfathers.
I'm sure you have some questions that we haven't answered.
I'm fascinated.
No,
Ken's terrified.
This was like a quick turnaround. I didn't do a lot of prep. I figured with this group,
I don't know that
I don't have to do
You know
shit.
what?
All right, Joe's gonna. All right, Joe, you take control of this.
Okay. Each of you, Ken, you start. Favorite Van Halen album. Now, and this could be maybe not like, my favorite, but like, what's the one to you that you were like, you heard and was like, holy shit, this is the one that's like, I could still put this on start to finish and it's there.
It's hard to choose because there's so many, but I think the pinnacle one for me was, because I was 10 years old, 10, 11, 5150.
I can't believe how young you are.
Yeah, hey, what can I say?
Damn whippersnapper.
But yeah, I mean, it just, like I said, I was a fan of Sammy Hagar. And I just, it was just blown away. Just
are you from here?
I am, yeah.
Okay, that explains everything.
Yeah. But it was like one of those things. It was like parallel, but then when you put those two together, it was like, wow.
Right.
And so I remember Christmas Eve, whatever year, I guess it was 1984, 85, because I think that album came out in 86. And my neighbors were like, fucking Van Halen's done. And I was like, I don't know, man. It might be kind of cool. And maybe in a sense that old school Van Halen, and granted it was more polished and everything, but I don't know, I like it, but I love it. But there's this, listening to each album, it's such a great band where you're like, no, I love this album. Then you listen to another one, you're like, oh, there's so many great songs in this album. Let me hear this. And the coolest thing for me about Van Halen was every time you listen to something, I think you can kind of hear something a little different. It's like I never picked up on that. He had so many different sounds, and just the bass with Michael Anthony and the drums. It's like every time you listen to it, it's depending on like where your brain is, you'll hear something different. And then that's what I love about the band. It's like, whoa, I don't remember hearing that. So for me that's like the album where I was like, yes.
5150, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is Fair Warning.
Oh, yeah.
Their darkest, their weirdest.
Definitely.
Like another thing, like electric slide guitar. The thing, Dirty Movies, I think, is the only time he ever played electric slide on anything. And there's a bunch of, One Foot Out the Door.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Okay, you can maybe tell. What is that?
Dude, that's the first evidence. Well, other than Cradle of Rock, that's him playing keyboards on a record.
Okay.
I love
that. That song's like a minute 40, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, and the song. What's the thing that leads into it?
Eric, what is it?
It's Unchained. What's
right before One Foot Out the Door?
Sunday afternoon in the park.
Sunday afternoon in the park. Yes.
If This Is Love, that was great.
Dude, so this is love.
So that record to me was like, I remember listening to that album and again, like, so this is post Women and Children First, so I was already aware of exactly what they were doing. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I was driving with my dad in the cleaning man van. My dad owned a carpet cleaning company, and we're driving and we're listening to that record, and I heard Mean Street, and I heard the Dirty Movies. And the next song is Sinner Swing.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're driving in the truck, and danger in the rearview mirror. There's something in the rear. Menace is loose again. She looks so fucking good, and boom! My dad turned the thing off. He's like, "You're not listening to that anymore."
Oh no!
She looks so fucking
right.
good.
Hey, exactly.
Mission accomplished. Yeah. Mission accomplished, Dave.
And that was like, well, that was my favorite band. Yeah. And it was
right.
prior to that. But that was one of those, like, I will never forget sitting next to my dad listening to that record. She looked so fucking good, and bam, and it was over.
Do you remember in the vinyl there was the poster of David Lee Roth? Was he looking in the mirror or something? It was a.
Is it the one where he's bending over backwards?
No, he's chained to the fence. That's Women and Children First.
What was the Fair Warning poster?
I don't know.
Okay, there was another like
abstract,
Dave poster. Like I remember, I could be misinterpreting this.
There's the one where he's like,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
That's on Women and Children.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, that poster.
Yeah.
Made me want Dave.
And
scene.
And what was it Women and Children First when they were when it was like the recreation of Iwo Jima where they had the flag?
Right.
Was it?
It could have been. I just remember after that, I wanted a red jumpsuit so bad, and I would go like shopping with my mom to try and find a red one-piece jumpsuit, and they didn't make them for boys. So
they did in Los Angeles.
Album.
What's that? All right.
Favorite Van Halen.
All right, so I'm gonna answer this two ways.
All right.
I will. No. I'm gonna tell you one. I'm gonna tell you one. I gotta first say, like,
if you say Jump, it's disqualified.
Jump is the best Van Halen album. There's no.
I love the Jump album. It's like my favorite album ever.
Who's that Van Halen boy? I like him. To me, undisputed, the best album is Fair Warning. it is what it is. But it's not my favorite because when you talk about your favorite, you know, there's a sentimental thing.
That's the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, it's women. It's women and children first. I just like,
Which is my second.
okay, sure, and it's the second best album. Like Fair Warning's the best album. I mean, come on. But my favorite album,
Which is also their least commercially successful album.
Fair Warning.
which makes sense. But you know, let me look at the track list here. Like,
Oh, boy.
And The Cradle Will Rock. Everybody Wants Some. And then in a simple rhyme, the harmonies.
Take your whiskey
Fools.
home.
Dude, you're forgetting my favorite song, which is Fools. That was one of my favorite.
Yeah.
It sounds just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that like boom, boom,
Yeah.
at the end of in a simple rhyme. Oh, dude, that whole album.
That's Growth.
Yeah.
That has a name.
Does it really?
It's called Growth.
I think that song was when they were trying to like
The
it out.
The idea
really?
was they were going to make the next record start with that.
really.
That was the because it
That riff.
the idea was the next album would begin with that.
That's brilliant.
And they would go into
Why the hell
whatever
didn't
that
they do
was,
it?
which never happened.
Wow.
Thank you, Van Halen.
But I mean, you can't argue with just the riff, the mighty riffness of
Yeah.
Fair Warning. But Women and Children first for me, and that cover, like the four of them on that cover, holding up
Yeah.
Eddie with the guitar.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like that's a rock band. That's the whole thing. I think that's my qualm with the whole Van Hager thing.
Sure.
Like the original Van Halen of the first 5 records, that's just a rock band to me. That's a bunch of guys who were poor as shit when they made their first record, and when you listen to their first record, they're poor as shit when they're recording that record. But there's balls
brilliant.
in that.
Oh.
And you know, look, just a quick little departure. I played a couple of gigs with Cheap Trick, like in the late '90s,
Right on.
and they were already icons.
Sure.
But they were playing. Even then, like they were still trying to get a record deal.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And that I never forgot that.
That's
That
cool.
stuck with me. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like these guys can just retire, but they're still like there's only 500 people in the audience. It's a little outdoor thing, and they're playing like there's record executives thinking
Yeah.
about signing them. You know what I mean? And I just felt like every one of those first 5 Van Halen records was that.
Sure.
Like even though at one point, like I guess by the time Women and Children first came, they were the kings of the world. They were still. I mean, they still put every kind of thing into those records, and it wasn't polished. It was raw. It was hungry. It was just that's what it is to me.
Definitely.
So, I have nothing against the Hager years.
Sure.
I just don't. That's not what I feel when I listen to that. I feel like it's polished. It's poppier. If you know what I mean.
Definitely.
You know, and Van Halen had a thing for me. That's why I love them. That's not there with the Hager. Obviously, that's a great band with Hager, and Hager's an amazing
Again,
frontman and
send
singer.
your
but-
hate mail to
Eric Grossman lives at 1-2.
Eric Grossman at JoeMeyer.com.
Joe Meyer, favorite Van Halen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is funny. As a child of the Sammy Hagar years, you know, honestly, the first album I bought from them that really, and this is for you. I mean, you guys can make fun of me for this all you want. I get it. Whatever.
Can we
I was
start
a
now?
freshman in high school, so you know, like in 1970.
3 years
I'm kidding.
ago.
Yeah, in like 1997, I remember getting my second Van Halen album, which was Van Halen 2. And for some reason, I listened to that album,
Vinyl or CD?
CD at the time.
I never got into vinyl myself.
I think I listened to that album every night for like a year. And there was something about 2, like that really to me was like, I dug the cover. I dug the cover of
2?
Of Linda Ronstadt's "You're No Good" because it was so
The
weird.
black and yellow guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was really weird. And well, the album cover, just the epic logo.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Oh,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Urgh," you know. But then like "Dance the Night Away,"
Great song.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, D.O.A.
Beautiful
still
Girls.
one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Women in Love.
Women in Love, yeah.
Somebody Get Me a Doctor. There was
Light Up the Sky is a great song.
oh, dude, that was
whole
a
album
drummer's-
is
yeah.
every song on that record, man.
That
Dude, Dirty Face Kid in a garbage can
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to be that Dirty Face Kid.
just that song that like meow, bow, 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 bow. I was just like, what the oh my god. But there was something about 2 that really to me was like, and I think this is one of those weird things that like about music that we all relate to and we all love is like when I still hear that, I still remember everything I thought then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I still remember like Dance the Night Away. Okay, I remember the mixer that I was at that I saw the chicks and I was like, there's the chicks and dancing. But like that's that weird thing though. You know,
dude,
music can take you
my
back.
weird thing
It does,
is,
you know.
I have like a boner for the 8th song on both, like Little Dreamer, which is a weird one.
What a
Yeah,
great
what a
song.
great song.
And the other one for that is what's the one on 2? What did you just say?
It was Women in Love.
No, the one before that.
Light Up the Sky?
What?
DOA.
Yeah.
Dead or Alive. Yeah.
So it's all the weird ones that are like an A or F sharp. Those are like some of my like favorite Van Halen
Just
songs.
I mean those songs like and 2 was kind of cool because when as we all go on, you always hear about the sophomore slump and you have 15 years to write the first one, but you have that and you think like when I listen to 2, I'm just like fuck, they pumped that.
How long is 2? It's like 33 minutes.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
That was the other brilliance of Van Halen is you never was like, is this record over yet? Like it was over and you wanted more Van Halen.
And I'll tell you this is from a complete non-guitar player standpoint. Eruption, I get it. Fucking 1 minute and 46 seconds that changed the world. But to me, like I had a shitty acoustic guitar that my dad had from like the 60s. And when I heard Spanish Fly,
Oh my God.
and that motherfucker doing all that shit on a fucking shitty I was like, Erupt what? Like what the fuck is this?
But that's why he was such a virtuoso. He could do it all.
God, just
Dude, what's the one where he's doing the trill and like ding 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 ding? Jesus Christ! When I first heard that, like he's got that note going, and at the same time, ding 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 ding.
was so fast
ding
with
ding
the-
ding ding. That's unbelievable.
Dude, now I'll tell you, you were talking about the Van Halen songs out of left field that kind of were secrets.
Yeah.
Like that one to me
Love.
was like, you had all these preconceived notions of Van Halen, then you hear and it's like, what is happening here? I don't know what this is, but this is incredible.
Yeah.
Like
She comes like a secret wind, walks tall as a mountain, something as a tree.
All right. If you could listen, if you could only listen to one Van Halen song and then it was going to be banned after that, what would it be?
if it was going to be banned.
Whoa.
No more Van Halen after that. This is it.
God.
One song.
Okay,
This is a hard question.
I know what mine is.
List the favorite the favorite album and all this, but the song that's still to me, if I'm driving down the road and I turn on KC95 and it's 5 seconds of it, and still makes my hair just go Unchained. It's there's something about that tune.
That opening riff and
video.
the power.
I mean, I remember that video was a live video, but that opening riff when on the Gary Sharon tour, that was the song they opened with.
Well, like the funny part about that whole thing was we toured with Extreme,
Right.
and they would sound check with like crazy Van Halen covers. Like they knew all those songs. Like
That's
Gary,
awesome.
they would do like Romeo Delight,
Yeah.
or they would do
Dude,
you
Nuno
know,
was one of the only cats who could do it.
Yeah,
man.
right.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Like that was like Nuno is another one of those like guys who is incredibly gifted, incredibly
Unbelievable
gifted
player, man.
player.
But tasteful player too.
But his kind of starting point was Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, yeah.
And then he springboarded into something other than that because he's gifted.
because he's Nuno.
But like I would watch them play crazy Van Halen covers that I was like, holy shit, they're doing Hear About It Later or whatever, and they would do them in soundcheck. And they knew all that stuff. So when Gary joined that band, I was like, "Oh, this is
Makes sense.
this
Of
course.
is
And he
perfect."
could pull off both eras. And
Right.
And
Yeah,
he
he
sounded
really could.
good. Yeah.
I will never forget that show. You were there too.
It was an incredible show.
And they opened with Unchained, and that was the first time I'd ever seen Van Halen. I just remember the lights being out, and then just and I remember my hair just went like.
And he had that like crazy antenna that was coming off the back of his guitar
right.
that kept his cable from like coiling up.
Yep.
And I was like, what is that thing hanging off his guitar? And that's just another thing. That's putting a Gibson pickup in a Fender guitar that's like, well, if I have this antenna thing that sticks out the back of my guitar cord won't get tangled up.
Right.
And it's like...
Wheels turning.
That was the tour that
crazy.
Alex was like, if I put this neck brace on, my neck... Terrible.
So wait. Favorite Van Halen song?
Yeah.
Go, Ken.
I'm still working.
Not favorite,
on it.
but if you could only hear one song again.
Oh, that is a tough question, Eric. You've stumped me. Oh man, it's hard to pick. There's so many great songs.
Don't look at the list. You're doing yourself a disservice by looking at the list.
You're right. Give me a second. Let me just let
Go
my
from
soul.
your heart, Ken. Go from your heart.
Man, I love so many of them.
Let
They
it
mean
flow.
so much.
Don't think. Let it just flow. And why?
Yeah.
I can't give you a why for mine, but I can give you a song.
Yeah, you give me yours first.
Okay. So, I mean, those tunes from Fair Warning have the best riffs, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But for me, it goes back to Women and Children first, and it's Cradle Will Rock. Mm-hmm. It just holds that place for me.
That's a Van Halen song with no guitar on it.
And Cradle Will Rock?
There's no guitar on that
Really?
song.
No way.
That is a Hammond organ played through Marshalls.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm not kidding you at all.
There's a guitar solo, isn't there?
There's a guitar solo,
Okay.
but there's the
Wow.
bam, 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 is a Hammond organ played through Marshalls.
Oh my God!
Played
Can I
through
change my
Eddie's
pick?
rig.
Okay.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
I did not know that.
A little bit.
Why
of
would I know
trivia
that? I
for
would just
me.
assume.
when
Jimmy
they played
Griffin
it, when
throwing
they
out the
played it
trivia.
live, they made Mike play keyboards on that.
Oh my
Really?
God!
Yeah, because they didn't want Eddie playing keyboards in front of people.
Holy
at that
shit!
point.
I
It's
did
just
not know that.
the lyrics. It's weird enough. It's weird that like the iconic thing about Van Halen is the guitar, and that's why we're here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's the lyrics of that song.
Yeah.
It's that story.
Yeah.
The new kid in town getting bullied and the
Younger generation swings.
all of that. It tells a story. It tells a story about why we love Van Halen. For me, it's why do I love Van Halen? Because it's a big fuck you to my parents. You know what I mean? I love my parents. Don't get me wrong. But, it's that whole thing. It's like, this is our band. This isn't yours. This is ours. And that story and that song is like, I'm that kid, and this is my band that's going to, save my
I just
life.
sat down again. Was it When It's Love?
Yeah. It was Little Guitars.
Oh, he picked mine.
Yeah. Man, I mean,
No, actually, you missed it because Jimmy threw some knowledge down at me that made my head explode.
Yeah, you're gonna have to listen to the podcast to get it.
Son of a...
It was
Long, listen and share, please.
okay. I won't retell it for the listeners.
No,
Joe
it
will have
was-
to listen back.
Yeah, Great. It was good. It was good. Man, somehow Running with the Devil is like sticking in my brain as far as, I mean, just
There you go. Not a bad
everything
choice.
with that. I mean, just that at the beginning, and just when I was in the Navy, I was listening to somebody, and Dave sings the lyric. He's like, "God damn the Navy and all you lifers, I'm going to tell you one time." and then tell you one time. I mean, if I could sing, we'd have a great band here. Good thing Jimmy could sing, and you guys can play. I'll
You
shoot
can lip
some
sync.
videos.
I hope I
shoot some
got
photos.
far enough away from the mic for that.
No, it was
hysterical.
I didn't blow out my ears, so I guess I'm all right. Well, but and then he at one point he was saying something like "Goodbye, Am," and we're like, because we were on the ship the America, and we're like, was he talking about the America? Was Dave in the Navy?
This is a Van Halen gig to ships?
No, he was like saying "Goddamn the Navy" and "Running with the Devil," and I'm like, what is he talking? Was he in the Navy? Did he? And I think he was. I think
just a live at
on the record.
on the record on the song "Running with the Devil."
No,
he's
man,
what?
I
he goes,
think-
"Goddamn the Navy and all you lifers, I'm gonna tell you one time, Jimmy."
No,
I thought he was
no.
saying, "Goddamn baby, and there's never I'm gonna tell you."
Holy shit, that's the interpretation of songs. I could have totally.
I never got a name. I don't think
That's
rock
wait.
I thought he was like.
gonna tell you one time.
Yeah, but
Like
I gotta
you
get a
thought
lyric.
that was aimed at the naval forces.
I think because we were like that's how we were interpreting.
I mean, you wouldn't think that he would be fucking with the Air Force.
No,
or
but I
something?
think I don't know if Dave like
kid a
served
Navy- was
in
he a
the
Navy
at
brat
one
or something?
point or what? I
Dave
don't know.
never served. In the
I don't
Navy.
fucking know, but that was my
Dave served
interpretation
drugs.
at that point.
If he served, he was in the Air Force. There's no doubt.
But Yeah, so that's the interpretation of songs, man. I mean,
amazing.
I am totally listening to that tonight to see if I can somehow hear what you just said.
I mean, that was our interpretation. That's what I picked up.
I'm gonna go home and see if I can somehow twist it into being what you just said it was.
I swear to God,
Ken,
that's
good.
what I heard.
Have you ever heard the David Lee Roth soundboard?
No, I have not.
So somebody found the
it's for that
isolated
song.
vocals of that to where you can hit buttons that are just like, oh!
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh!
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Fuck you, John Paul Jones.
yeah, and then it's like, Colin Powell, wow! No, I'm just kidding.
But you know what? I swear, because I mean, the Navy was like lifers was a big thing.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm swearing by it.
Okay,
man.
here's the
I'm
thing.
swearing
You
by
should do what Joe just said, because you can actually hear an
I'm
isolated
gonna do it.
take
Yeah.
of that exact line.
And I'm gonna be like,
and you
God.
can hear it over and over again.
That's one of the
that's beauty.
amazing things that's happened now in the computer age is you can isolate Eddie Van Halen playing the guitar.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can also hear, what's also amazing is the gigantic plate reverb that is placed on, like he will stop playing and be like,
Oh yeah.
you know. But like you listen, go back to, as we talk about Women and Children first, go back to Loss of Control. Listen to the isolated track of that, and whether you like punk rock or whether you like, no matter what you like, you can't listen to that and go, that guy didn't mean that thing. Like it's brutal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not heavy metal and it's not anything. It's just fast and it's with passion.
By the way, that's on my favorite record. Just
Yeah.
Well, like Atomic
Continue on.
Punk.
Yeah.
Or like songs like that. Yeah, it's that thing of, it's like,
Yeah.
Well, and there's another perfect example of Eddie, that like the chugga 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 chugga,
Oh, yeah,
like the
yeah.
whole beginning of Atomic Punk.
Yeah.
is taking your hand, like anybody in the world could play Atomic Punk if they can go cha 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 cha. All
What is
you
it,
have to
rubbing his hand
do
on the
is
strings?
all you have to do is turn on an MXR Phase 90 from 1973, because the new ones sound like shit. And you go chugga 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 chugga, and you just move your hand back and forth on the strings. He's not even playing any notes.
Yeah.
But that sounded ungodly.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like that, and that's not it's not
chopstick.
fingers.
Yeah.
It's not. He wasn't doing anything technical. That was, man, this kind of sounds cool
But that's
when
the
I turn this
brilliance.
pedal
Yeah.
on.
dude,
Yeah.
the power drill on Pound Cake.
Yeah, I mean,
that
who
whole-
else was like,
Shut up. Dude, shut up.
Like that,
you,
that
dude.
thing on like that album from like 2019 was awesome.
I got a question for Jimmy. Did we get everybody's favorite
No,
song?
we gotta get Joe.
get
We gotta
Joe's.
get Joe. And then after that,
What's
I
that?
want to. I gotta
song.
give a
No,
shout out to my
Unchained.
sponsor.
I said my song.
Oh, yeah,
you
he
did
was
say
first,
Unchained?
actually.
Yeah, Unchained.
I wasn't even paying
I'd have to
attention.
go.
It
Way
wasn't
to go,
that.
guys.
It wasn't
That's
that.
cool.
It wasn't that important.
I'm gonna listen back when I, when I.
Yeah,
see
listen
all
to the
that on here.
podcast.
He's just a kid, man. I mean, seriously.
No, Unchained's fucking great song.
My favorite
Yeah.
song, The Seventh Seal
That's
off
right.
of Balance. Go ahead.
I like it. It's
Was
a
there
good
an album
song.
called Balance?
There was.
You guys are.
I mean,
All
there's
right.
some interesting
Humans
sounds on
Being
that.
off the
on
Twister
that.
soundtrack. It was killer. You guys should check it out.
I got a question for Jimmy.
Wait, we didn't get to my favorite song.
We didn't.
We didn't?
Do you have one?
Damn it.
I don't know.
It's a hard question,
Ice
Eric.
cream, man.
You bastard. You
Do you want me
made
to?
the hardest question
no,
ever.
you know
Did I
what?
pick yours?
No, I would. It would maybe be something off of one, like a Little Dreamer was always a really big one for
Yeah.
me.
Great one, man.
And then as weird as it is, Hear About It Later.
How about
like
Ice Cream Man?
The solo and Hear About It Later, where it kind of
Dude.
bounces around.
Pick one, man.
Yeah.
Ain't talking about love. I mean, that's another one that I
yeah,
could
that's
say.
another
No.
You're not going there. I mean,
Pick one, Jimmy.
All right, no, go ahead.
Happy
What
Trails.
was your question?
So on the Frankenstrat, what the hell is the quarter for?
Oh, he was just doing stuff to throw people off. Like
Seriously?
the
Okay.
the only selection on that guitar that works is the humbucker. Like the neck pickup was not even a functional thing. It didn't even work, and that was what he did. Like when you hear something like "Hot for Teacher," he actually played on a Flying V.
Really?
That he could switch
A stock Flying V?
Yeah, because he didn't have anything that's switch
the
pickups.
switchable, right.
So he could do the on the middle or neck instead of, and then, you know, so he had, because all of his guitars had one pickup in the bridge, and that was all. And the other thing that he did was having a bridge pickup that was connected directly to a volume knob, and it went straight from the volume knob to the output of the guitar. Whereas a normal guitar would have a pickup and a pickup selector, which convolutes things, and then a volume knob and a tone knob and like all these other variants that would, and his pickups were screwed directly into the wood of the guitar,
I heard him talk about that.
which was a huge and that was his part of his concept, was the less resistance between his hands,
shortest pathway,
and and those speakers was the beauty of what happened when he did that, and that's what I think is amazing, you know.
So for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, he had a quarter, like a coin, like screwed into just above the bridge on the red and you know, the red and black and white stripe,
which was the black and white guitar
originally.
Yes.
So here's a story he tells about, like, you know, he was a broke ass kid, and with all these ideas, and he goes down. What was the shop that made the bodies?
It was Boogie Bodies.
Boogie Bodies. He went down to the Boogie Bodies place, and he's like, I need to buy a Strat body, and you know, what are those? And the guy goes, well, we can't sell you those. Those are seconds. And he's like, well, what are seconds? He goes, well, we can't sell those because they're not good wood. They got knots. And he's like, I'll take one. $25. He gets the wood for it, and then he went and got a neck for like another $25. Yeah. That guitar's like $100 made. It's going to probably be in the Smithsonian, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but Jesus, like all that unbelievable music came from like $100 guitar. Yeah. Incredible.
It's the plumber, not the tools, Eric.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. Then why do I spend so much money on instruments?
But yeah, man, it's just looking at just what that meant to everybody, even. And I got to give a shout out to my sponsor, my good buddy, Dr. Mark Holland, who was, you know, I was talking to him early on. And I said, Mark, did you ever play any Van Halen tunes? He's like, fuck no, I couldn't do that. But appreciation, cruising around, you know, listening to Halen tunes. I mean, just so many people. It just, even if you weren't a huge fan, you listened. So I got to give a shout out to Mark. And if you need any chiropractic help, you know, you're headbanging too much or sitting behind a computer editing music or podcasts.
I'm too old to headbang.
You know, but yeah, maybe you need to get those adjustments and do some yoga, get the stretches in. But yeah, shout out to
I can't even reach my knees.
Throws me a couple bucks for the podcast and helps, you know, allows me to buy some soup and keep nourished.
What was the name again?
Dr. Mark Holland. Thank you, Jimmy. But look, I mean, hard question, Eric, like picking that one song. But I want to shift a little bit. I'm having a blast. You guys still having fun with this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But just the stories of how humble Eddie was. And I saw so many stories. You have one, Jimmy. We'll get to that in a minute. Right. But great so many stories where somebody says, you know, Eddie's like after a show is in a bar that somebody's playing. They're like, oh, dude, you're my favorite. Would you sit in for the song? And like the guy sits in and plays like 30 minutes. And he's just having so much fun. Or somebody that, another story I saw, somebody was in a hotel getting ready for the show, and they're blasting Halen music in the hotel. And they get a knock at the door. And they're just like, oh, fuck, man, hotel security's telling us to turn it down and all that. And it's Eddie Van Halen. And he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You know, and he's got the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. They're like, fuck, dude, you want to hang out? And he's like, can we get a picture with you and your guitar? And, you know, he's like, hey, you got to get a picture with my cigarette. And, like, the dude hangs out with these guys for, like, 20, 30 minutes.
He's the Bill Murray of guitar players.
Yeah, the great analogy.
Look, you know, especially being, for me, a kid of the 80s.
Sure. Like
guitar players, and Jimmy's not like this, but guitar players like of that era were so self-important. Like, you know, they like swagger and I'm a badass. And he was like, he would just come out and he was the opposite. Big grin on his face, jumping around like a goofball. Just genuinely like the pure joy of being able to do what he did. It was infectious, you know? This is not a Corona joke. It was like,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We are socially distanced here, but you know, it's like he was the antithesis of of the attitude of all these other lead guitar players. Dude, trust me, man, in the 80s, it was, every guitar player thought they were the center of the universe. And then there's this guy. He is the center of the universe and totally humble.
And that grin, man. He was
like he knew. I know. I heard interviews with him. I say a lot, don't I? I heard an interview with him 5 years ago.
I say a lot.
Okay. Well, we all got our thing. So 5 years ago, I saw an interview that he gave, and even then, he's an icon. He was so humble and, told everybody he just felt blessed, and it's not that lip service that you hear everybody say, oh, I'm blessed. Like Kanye says he's blessed. Nobody thinks Kanye believes he's blessed. He thinks he is a blessing. But here's this guy who's a cultural icon who literally feels like it's just a gift that he got to do this, and he's so thankful. And it came out when he was playing, came out when he was performing. He never lost that. It's the same thing he had when he had no money.
Yeah.
There was a cool post by one of the ladies who was one of his nurses, and she was like, in the last year of his life, I got to go give him 3 months of treatment. And she's like, the first day I was there, I was like, okay, here I am with the guitar god. And I don't remember the story, but she wrote within a week, she was like, she didn't even remember that. And she was like, here was this guy that every day I showed up to give him treatment, was just smiling, laughing, asking about me, curious about my story. Somebody would come by with like a puppy dog for him to pet and he would just be sitting there ear to ear, holding up the dog, petting the dog, laughing, telling stories. And she goes, it was every day for 3 months that he was like that.
Wow.
She goes, he was never not like that. He was never in a bad mood and all that. And it's like, I'm sure, could have read 100 stories, or we've known guys who have had stories, and I don't recall ever hearing one where somebody was like, man, fuck that guy. Right. Or hearing one like, my buddy ran you and fuck that. Right. I don't remember hearing that. I always remember hearing the opposite, yeah, I think he probably had too much to drink and he talked to me for 8 hours. And it's that's incredible.
He came to my house and we had dinner.
Yeah. That's fucking Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
But I think being that humble, and that was one of the things, being on that stage, it was uncomfortable for him. So it was, self-medicating.
Yeah.
But
there's a kind of a shyness that you see, even though he's rambunctious, he was rambunctious and jumping around.
Oh, man.
That grin.
Did you guys read Valerie Bertinelli's tweet about his death? Dude,
I did not.
It's unbelievable, where she was like, I'm glad I could be there with you in your final minute. And, though it was something where she was like, though we had our troubles, I'll see you again in paradise, my love. And it's one of those things that you just sit there and you're like, fuck. There was obviously something there that was the thing that he struggled with for all those years. Right. And you read Sammy's book, and even the tour that they did in 2004, 2005, when he was the samurai bun and the fucking losing his mind. There was always shit going on, know, but I think that was that part of him, though, that was the same guy that would carve his initials into the 63 Strat, or be like, I'm going to fucking drill my shit into a board, or I'm going to fucking rip shit out of here, and no one's done it because I don't give a fuck. Right.
Well, that's when I first started doing this, when I would go out at night to go play, my mom would say, play nice, and you should smile more. And I was like, no, Mom, smiling is that's not cool.
It's not rock and
roll.
And
I would make a point to not do that. And the older I've gotten and the more that I've played, it's easier to let that out. And it's more natural. Sure. For me at this point, and people respond to that. They're like, I love that you are having fun doing what you're doing. And I wish I could have tapped into that earlier. And I think that's part of what's beautiful about Edward, is he was always able to there was never any like, well, I'm going to be this guy, or I'm going to be Keith Richards, or I'm going to be this guy. You know, like he was always Edward Van Halen.
Dude,
always,
there was a great clip of someone shared of him on Letterman. Oh, of him on Letterman in '85, and it was like Steve Jordan, Paul Schaefer, you know, Will Lee, and like he's sitting in with the, and this is '85. This is after Jump and Hop, and he's just like hanging out. And Paul Schaefer's like, oh, okay, David, like a special guest, and like, you know, he's sitting there and he introduces, and he kind of looks up and he's smiling, he's kind of like looking down, and he just does one of those things.
He does.
And you're just like, and he's like smiling, looking, and then like when the band starts playing though, like they play an instrumental version of Panama.
Yep.
And like Steve Jordan's playing drums and shit. They're not playing anything like but like they're hitting different fills, and he's just looking at the band, just fucking like every time someone hits a fill, he's looking at him. He's like, you know, he's smiling, he's like laughing, and you just sit there and you're just like,
yeah, I guess it fucking
dude, it's
loving it.
It's oozing out of him, and that's '85. Yeah. The guy was a Tyrannosaurus Rex then.
Yeah,
he was never jaded.
Yeah,
no.
He was the opposite of Dave.
I just like I watched the
Dave was born jaded.
Yeah, I watched that Saturday Night Live performance. I don't know what year it was.
Oh, with
but
G.E. Smith.
G.E. Smith and Valerie Bertinelli, I guess, was hosting, and she's my best friend Eddie, and he was just like him. And back in the day, I thought G.E. Smith was kind of cheesy, but I didn't know anything. But now I'm like, whoa, he was fucking good. Oh, yeah. And just them two riffing and just reacting and all that, it was like, this is freaking cool. And I watch Saturday Night Live all the time, but I don't remember it. But it was cool to see, and you could just tell he was just enjoying the hell out of it. And they were just jamming. It was cool.
You know, there was a funny story. The musical guest that night for the Valerie Bertinelli show was the Robert Cray Band.
Whoa.
And there was an interview that Robert Cray at one point put out, because like that was like the big record of his. And like and like there he is on SNL with fucking Eddie Van Halen. And he was like, I was like, what the fuck? And he goes, and the two songs we played, and he's like, there was Eddie right in the wing watching.
That's awesome.
And was like, that was fucking great. You guys are fucking great. And I'm just like, what a weird pressure that would be, you know? Like,
so that was like Strong Persuader. And,
yes. Yeah, that was,
Well, even when he was just hanging out with Wolfgang and going to see like Tremonti's band and all that, it's just like how would that be? Like Eddie Van Halen is in the audience checking out your band.
Did you see that famous Instagram photo that this kid? It's at a Tool concert, and they're just like stage left in the first, and some kid he's taking a picture of some kid with the stage, and the kid doesn't even know he asked Eddie to take his picture.
Yeah.
Like you gave your camera, hey, mister, can you take a picture of me with the stage behind it? And it's freaking Eddie Van Halen.
Did you see the Terry Welty story?
I did not.
No. Terry's was awesome. He like had to take Terry worked for Geezer Butler for years and was taking this guitar to Tony Iommi to get ready for the show, and Wolfgang and Edward are in the dressing room. And Terry walks in and he says, who orders the black SG? And everybody kind of laughs. And he goes, he looks at Wolfgang and he says, hey man, would you sign, this is Terry Welty. And he says, would you sign my guitar? And Wolfgang's like, yeah, I'll do that. Do you want my dad to sign it too? And he goes, who's your dad?
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
Wait a minute.
Amazing.
So maybe he wasn't joking about who ordered the black SG.
No, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great story.
It's given. I mean, Wolfgang. Wow, that kid. I can't wait to hear his album.
Apparently, he's got one in the can.
I mean, it's like 5 years he's been working on it. That's the problem with having your own studio. You just keep working, and
that's the blessing about having your own studio.
Blessing and a curse. I mean, you know, at some point you want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, man, he better get his album out soon, because otherwise, how's he going to feed his family? I mean,
I just hope he, like we said, puts out. You know, we hear some of those archives. That'd be
hope
cool.
so.
That'd be cool.
I mean, you know, there was. I think one of the cool things was, you know, Sammy Hagar said today that he finally had said that over the last like 8 or 9 months that him and Eddie had actually been in contact, and like they had like reconciled.
Yeah.
And been like, dude, you know, love fest. Like, I love you, man. I love you, man. You know,
that's cool.
And like they had totally come to a really, but like they had agreed, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because the minute you say something, everyone's gonna be like, oh, reunion. So they were like, don't say anything. And then, you know, Sammy said he knew Eddie wasn't in good health. Right. So that they also were like, don't say anything.
And
because
Dave's been saying that for like 6 months.
Yeah. And Sammy said one of those things, like there was an interview today that him and Michael Anthony filmed where Sammy had said, like, we were texting and everything was cool. And he goes, a week ago I texted him and he didn't reply. And he goes, I knew, he goes, from our texts over the last 8 months, something went right. And he goes, and I texted again like 3 days ago. And he goes, and I didn't hear back. And he goes, I just put my phone down and I thought, this is it.
See, I'm getting sick of these like really famous people that are dying and not telling us that they're dying.
Yeah.
Like, the Neil Peart thing is like, I think wherever they are, they should give us a week and they should let us amass. And I think, 50,000 people showing up to go, well, it's not going to cure cancer.
Yeah.
But it's and maybe the hardest part about the whole thing is when it comes down to it, they're just people just like us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that a part of them should have that Viking funeral.
Yeah.
That they've lived through their whole lives.
The Irish wake.
Where there's like, holy shit, there's fucking 50,000 people outside my hospital room.
Yeah.
Even if this isn't going to happen and I'm not going to pull through this is the way I live my life. This is the way I'm going to go out. And those people would be able to celebrate. And again, that's, they're human beings and they deserve their privacy and they should be able to go in the way they want to go. But I think if they go, you got a week, people would show up and it would be fucking awesome.
Man, yeah. I wish, yeah.
Yeah, but people like that, they wouldn't want to be seen like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, they don't have to be seen. They don't have to be seen.
Don't have to come to the window?
Nope. They don't have to do anything. They just have to know that it's happening.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. They deserve it. Let them do.
Yeah, I think that was there's the shocking ones.
I hope Keith Richards comes to my funeral.
Keith Richards may live forever.
This is a funny story. Our friend Brian Henneman said this to me years ago when all of this started happening, when Prince and Bowie and Petty and Glenn Frey, when all those were happening. And I said, man, this is rough. And he goes, man, it's only going to get worse because
they're all 70.
Yeah.
Time is, our heroes have gotten old.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, no, shit. You're right. And when you think about the guys that are the Stones that are like 80,
they're almost as old as Eric.
I look pretty good though.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah, you do.
For my age anyway.
But like Pete Townsend and Daltrey and McCartney, Ringo,
yeah,
sweet
Clapton.
Although Paul McCartney's probably going to live to be 105 and still be playing.
I mean,
his diet,
that vegan diet.
You hope. I mean, but it's like it's one of those things that you sit there and you go, boy, it's true. But these are the ones though that are.
But he was only 65.
Hard.
Yeah, but Eddie was only 65, man.
He's 65. Petty was 67.
Mm-hmm.
Prince was 60.
Yeah, but that was
like
Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was 50 something.
Yeah. Those are the ones that no matter what are like, like even Bowie, cancer. Mm-hmm. Like it's like, it would be one thing if if it's like fucking Chubby Checker checks out today at 91. Like, you might still be sad, but you'd be like, fuck 91, wave the flag.
Yeah.
But when you hear, like, Edward Van Halen, 65.
Yeah, but he would have, to be Eddie Van Halen, he wouldn't have wanted to be 80 and be not Eddie Van Halen.
It's true. Is it
And
better
he lived all 65 years
Yeah,
exactly like
imagine.
Eddie Van Halen.
Oh shit! He started like smoking at 12.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever hear the Fred Durst story?
No.
I don't want to do that.
I just read this.
Another legend.
This is fucking amazing.
Fred Durst dies. Will the forest?
So
it's
this
like
is
a tree
after
fall.
this is after the Hagar years, and this is before the Gary Sharon. Apparently, they were at a party together, and Fred Durst is fucked up and is like, "Hey man, how about the world's best guitar player?" And apparently, this is a quote: "Come jam with the world's shittiest band."
Talking
and
about
so
Limp
Eddie Van
Bizkit?
Halen was like, "Okay." And so he grabbed an amp, grabbed some guitars, and went over to the Limp Bizkit rehearsal space and
Fucking
set up,
Eddie
and they
Van Halen.
fucking jammed. And the story was, from people that knew Eddie, he was like, it was fucking awful. It was, and he even said something like, it was like being a college doctorate in a room of preschoolers. And he got so mad he just left.
Holy shit!
Well, he apparently had called Fred Durst then the next 2 days being like, I'm going to come over. I need to come over and get my fucking shit.
He left his shit there.
No return phone calls.
Because
So-
they're sold Eddie shit.
Eddie apparently owned this, or I guess who knows if he apparently owned this illegal, like, Hummer with a gun mount on the back, like a military, and drove that clear across L.A. to their house and drove on their front lawn. And Fred Durst and all the people in the house confirmed the story by saying that Fred Durst answered the door to Eddie Van Halen holding a gun to him saying, "Get my shit now, motherfucker, and bring it out to the car." And then Fred Durst just said, "Go get his fucking shit, guys!" And then there's 3 guys that brought out the amp, the guitar, and Eddie Van Halen put the gun away, got in the car, and just sped off. And I'm like,
I hope to God that is a true story.
amazing. Like,
I hope beyond anything
there
that
are
is a true story.
Multiple sources that have said
That's
it's a
fantastic.
true story, but
Yeah, see,
Look at here's the thing is like only Fred Durst can piss off Eddie Van Halen.
only.
I didn't. In doing this, I didn't want to go past 1984, and I know that you love the Hagar years, but there's definitely some stuff towards the middle and the end of our story that's not as amazing as the front of our story.
Yeah.
You know, and that's with anybody.
Yeah.
It's not just Edward Van Halen. But that's the beauty of the genesis of his thing is nothing can eclipse where he started.
Oh yeah.
You know, like if Hendrix would have made a record in 1984 that had chorus and reverb all over it, we'd still be listening to Are You Experienced and Axis Boldest Love. You know, the same way we're listening to the old Van Halen records right now.
Yeah. Do you want to share your Van Halen story?
For anybody that doesn't like me on Facebook.
Well, you know, now it's the audio version's a little different.
Okay,
You know, it's a
yeah.
little something.
Yeah, so we were, Frank and I were flying to Los Angeles, and they were about to play 3 shows here, and I don't know what year that was exactly, but they were playing 3 shows at Riverport, whatever year that was. And we were sitting in the terminal, and I saw Sammy Hagar, and he was walking with Michael Anthony, and they were walking that way, and they were like, "See you guys in a couple of days." And I turn my head the other way, and I see the people that he's speaking to is Edward and Alex. And they were walking towards us. Like, oh my God, this is crazy. And there was an entire terminal full of chairs, and the only 2 chairs where no one was sitting, which was probably because people didn't want to sit by us because we looked weird, was right there. It was that it was less than that far away.
Yeah.
And Eddie Van Halen sat down that far away from me.
That's
Right across
awesome.
from you?
Directly across from me.
2 feet.
Yeah.
Or no, 4 feet.
Yeah, like I
it
could
wouldn't be social distance.
No,
but,
no, no.
yeah.
Could have played footsie
I
with him.
could have kicked him in the shin.
Yeah.
And he sat there. Alex sat there. Frankie was sitting here. Their guy was checking them in. And I sat there for a couple of minutes and just thought, I don't want to say anything because it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure he's been awake all night. I don't want to mess with him. And then what set in was him looking at me being I was dressed like I play the guitar, and to play the guitar in that era and not acknowledge Edward Van Halen would be a colossal jerk move. So I pictured him looking at me going, who the fuck does this guy think that he is to not acknowledge Edward Van Halen? And it overcame me, and I had my carry-on bag, and I had CDs, and I had a disc player, and I had a Fair Warning disc, and I just pulled it out, and I just kind of held it right about here, and it was like, hey, why don't you have the new one? And that was how it started.
Yeah.
And I said something to him, and he was like, what? I was like, no, I like this record a whole bunch. You should hear the new one. And he, like, what? Like, everything I said, he did. The first time I said it, he did not hear whatever I said. And I wish I remembered more of the conversation. And Frank was there, and Alex, and we were all talking, and no one else in the 150 people that were in the terminal approached them and was like, "Holy, that's Eddie Van Halen."
And Alex Van Halen.
Yeah. And we just made small talk and went back and forth, and it was great. And he was super cool. Like, there was no, anything weird. And I told him, I was like, man, you're a huge reason why I like playing the guitar.
That's cool.
And I shook his hand, and I'm gotta be almost a foot taller than he is, and his hand was the size
baseball glove.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was great, and it was 5 minutes, but it was 5 minutes when he could have been a complete jerk, and he was not. And that's no, they were both it was super cool.
Dude, you got to tell. My favorite part though is what he said to you about the first class.
Oh yeah. Well,
Give the background for that too.
Yeah, they wound up getting our first class seats that we had bumped up to.
Yeah.
And they had not checked in yet.
Yeah.
Prior to us.
And you're
getting
thinking
there,
fuck.
Yeah, well,
The
they
Van
were
Halen brothers.
and we would do this frequently, and I would wind up sitting next to some businessman from Pittsburgh while I was slamming vodka and chain smoking in first class back in 1990.
Yeah.
And when you could smoke on airplanes was great. And I love it. So anyway, we had checked in and we had bumped up to first class, and we were standing in line. We're like, oh, they're boarding first class. And we got up, and Eddie and Alex went on the plane, and we were standing right behind them. They were like, you guys aren't first class anymore. It wasn't them. It was like the
gatekeeper.
Those guys.
Yeah.
And the gate people didn't know who they were either.
Yeah.
They were just like, those guys got your tickets.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So then as we were walking through the plane, and I have my carry-on over my shoulder, and we're walking past the first class section, and Eddie looked up and he was like, You get the first class next time, man. I was like, okay. And I couldn't think of anyone more, rightfully, justifiably bumping me back to
Dude,
coach.
seriously, if you would have ended up with the first class, you'd have given it up for him anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm going to give up my... Eddie Van Halen is back there. He should be sitting here.
Yeah.
That's
a
great story. Well, final thoughts. Any final thoughts? Any, what the band meant to you, what Eddie meant?
Oh, man. I mean, they were... the definition of, it's the joke I said to you the other day. It's like I always kind of have this joke about this pandemic time where I feel like everything is going to be narrated by a PBS guy that's like, and then the musicians played in neighborhoods to where people danced. But I feel like when I look about Van Halen, I feel like it's like, if I told you there was a time that rock and roll bands ruled the earth the size of dinosaurs, would you believe? And they epitomize that. They were the epitome to me of the larger than life in every single way rock band. They were the band that as a kid, I was like, if I could even get halfway as close as that one day, I'd be the happiest dude on the face of the earth. I mean, that was it. They were the definition of just mighty. I don't think there was a band that will ever be as mighty as Van Halen.
Right on. Eric?
Yeah, well, this has been, I'm so glad we did this because for the past 2 days, I've been so incredibly sad.
Yeah.
For me, we've been losing a lot of people, and I get sad because these people mean everything to us, but this is the worst one for me, and I don't know that there will be anybody else that will affect me the way losing Eddie has. But I posted a video on my Facebook page. It's me when I was in Cage Choice, and we're playing an arena. We're headlining an arena in Belgium or the Netherlands. It's 12,000 people, and the video is taken from behind me. And there's a part in the song where I move to the front of the stage, and I'm playing by myself. And then that part ends, and the lights kick on, and you see all the people. And I'm telling you, at that moment, after 25 years of playing and working my tail off to get there, I was thinking, Van fucking Halen, that's what this is.
Wow.
It wasn't, of course, but for me,
that's your Like
I could have thought about anything, but this was like I'm fucking Eddie Van Halen, right? Even though I'm a bass player. They, like Joe said, they epitomized what it meant to be a rock star. They didn't. They floated on air as far as I was concerned. And as a kid of the 80s and in the hair band era, that is what we aspired to be. That was the bar. And nobody could meet that bar, but that's what you were going for. So this is monumental. This can't be eclipsed in my mind. And I'm just thankful that in all the millions of years we've been around, I got to exist at the same time as Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, right on. Jimmy?
Oh, man. It's so hard because being a guitarist and being so influenced by everything that he did, not only as a guitarist, but as a sonic explorer, and as a, just a conduit of sound. And it wasn't the notes, and it wasn't the attack. It was the wherewithal to think that he could do it. And that was the beauty of the whole thing, was the blind love for making noise. And he did it so amazingly, and with just complete reckless abandon and joy, and that's what we all want to find in music is freedom and an expression. And that's what Eddie Van Halen is to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all I got. I
cool,
love
man.
him. I love him so much.
Yeah,
I love him so
yeah.
much.
Yep.
Dude, you reminded me of both reminded me of talking about that. It's the other night I was listening to Diver Down, and I flipped over the back of the record, and the back of the record is that picture of the four of them on stage in just front of that ocean of humanity, to where they look like ants. And there's like this open bowl stadium of 50,000, whatever the hell it was. And I remember, like, if there was one picture that summed up everything about Van Halen to me, that's it. These four dudes that were just these tiny little dudes on this stage playing to this just like fucking endless chamber of humanity that were losing their mind. You know, and I'm like, that picture on the back of Diver Down to me was like all of it summed up in one photo, you know?
Yeah, to me, it's all about the connection, and that's what with this podcast, you know, connection to the art, and just listening, you know, over the years to the cassettes and, you know, the albums that my neighbors lent me, and just going, you know, my cousins, the O'Keefes, just my cousin Joe O'Keefe was a huge Van Halen fan, and seeing some shows with him. And just we look at, you know, we talk about music being the soundtrack of our lives, and when we listen back to some of these tunes, how it brings us back to moments, and you remember, oh, you know, this moment I was, you know, I had for unlawful carnal knowledge in my car when I didn't set the gear shift and my car almost rolled down a hill. And, you know, it's like, that's what I was jamming to. So when I hear some of these songs, it takes me back to that moment. Or watching my cousin Joe and his friend Dan just like air guitaring like complete fools at a concert, and just loving, you know, every moment of that. It's just those connections. And
It's the soundtrack of your life, man.
It absolutely is, man. So it's just like having that and just being my favorite band and subscribing to the Inside magazine when I was a kid and all that.
Man, yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just cool, man. So yeah, those connections for me, and it's just like I'll forever be connected to that band. And although I've never met Eddie Van Halen, it's just like I feel like I knew him. Yeah. So yeah, it's,
you know, my wife
stuff.
My wife said it really great to me yesterday. She's not a musician, never has been. She's, you know, she loves rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was leaning against the counter in our kitchen, and I said to her, I'm having a really hard time with this. This is really affecting me. And she said, I know, it's like losing a friend.
Yeah,
man.
It's that connection.
We loved him.
Yeah.
And he loved us, man. He did. I know he did.
As you alluded to earlier, Ken, yesterday was my birthday, and I said the best birthday gift I could ever have is that social media was literally a Van Halen love fest for 24 hours for a negative reason. Right. But
just
that
pictures
was
of
the
Eddie.
greatest birthday gift I could, was
Yeah.
to open up every social media thing and just see nothing but Edward Van Halen. Was like, dude, this was better than any birthday present I could have fucking asked for. Like, hey, here's this lost interview. Here's him on fucking...
Yeah. Well, thank you, Eric, for you planted the seed of talking about music, having Joe along, and it's your second podcast with me. Jimmy, the second one as well. Thank you for hosting. And Joe, thanks for now becoming part of my podcast family.
Thank you.
Man, thanks so much, Ken. This is great.
This has been
love you guys. This
incredible
is amazing.
therapy. Yeah, I love you too, buddy.
Right. Thank you, man.